My friends, one of the greatest struggles in life is waiting. Waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for a dream to come true, waiting for prayers to be answered. It is in the waiting season that many lose faith, become discouraged, and sometimes even walk away from their destiny. But today I want to tell you that God's timing is perfect, and if you learn to trust Him, you will see His plan unfold in ways you never imagined. God is not bound by our schedules, our expectations, or our clocks. He moves according to His divine wisdom, and when we align with His timing, we find peace, purpose, and fulfillment. Here are 8 powerful truths that will help you trust God's timing for your life. 0.1. God works in seasons, not in seconds. Life follows divine seasons just like nature. No matter how much we want certain things to happen quickly, God operates on a process, not a clock. Ecclesiastes 3:01 declares, "To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven." This truth reveals that God has appointed times for everything we go through. A farmer understands this principle. He plants seeds, waters them, and waits for the right season to harvest. No amount of wishing or impatience can make the crop grow overnight. In the same way, when God places a vision or purpose in your heart, there will be seasons of development before you see the results. Skipping the process can lead to failure or loss. If a fruit is picked too soon, it lacks flavor and nutrition. Many people grow frustrated with God because they expect a harvest in a season of planting. Joseph's life is a powerful example of divine timing. At 17, God gave him a dream that he would become a ruler. But before that dream came to pass, he went through slavery, betrayal, and imprisonment. For 13 years, he experienced hardship that seemed opposite to God's promise. However, God was not denying him. He was preparing him. The moment Joseph was ready, Pharaoh summoned him, and in one day he went from prison to the palace. Had Joseph become a ruler too soon, he would not have had the wisdom to handle power. Many people want the reward without the process. They want promotion before preparation. But everything in God's creation teaches us that great things take time. A tree with deep roots takes years to grow strong, but when storms come, it remains unshaken. If you feel stuck in a season where nothing seems to be happening, trust that God is working beneath the surface. The longer the preparation, the greater the impact. David was anointed as king while still a boy, but God did not place him on the throne immediately. Instead, he went back to tending sheep. Though he had received a king's anointing, he continued to live as a shepherd. God allowed him to go through battles, challenges, and training before giving him the kingdom. If David had rushed ahead, he would not have been ready to lead a nation. God uses seasons to build character. A caterpillar does not become a butterfly overnight. There is a hidden phase where transformation happens in the cocoon. The struggle it faces while breaking out is necessary for its wings to develop strength. If someone intervenes and breaks the cocoon too soon, the butterfly will be weak and unable to fly. God knows the exact moment when you will be ready to soar. Seasons remind us to be patient and trust the process. Just as winter turns to spring and spring to summer, your life will shift at the appointed time. If you are in a season of waiting, trust that God has not forgotten you. He is working in ways you cannot see. The timing of your breakthrough is not in your hands, but it is in the hands of the one who created time itself. A delay does not mean that God has forgotten you. It simply means the time is not yet right. Many assume that when God does not answer immediately, He has said no. However, often He is saying not yet. Abraham and Sarah desperately wanted a child. God promised them a son. Yet years passed without fulfillment. At one point, they tried to force the promise by taking matters into their own hands, leading to the birth of Ishmael. This caused unnecessary conflict and pain. But when the right time came, Isaac was born, just as God had promised. Had they waited in full trust, they would have avoided heartache. Many make the same mistake today, rushing into decisions because they think God is taking too long. Acting prematurely can lead to pain that could have been avoided. David's story also illustrates this truth. After being anointed as king, he had to endure years of hardship. Saul, the reigning king, became jealous and tried to kill him. There were moments when David had opportunities to take the throne by force, but he refused. He trusted that God's plan would unfold at the right time. His patience paid off, and he became king without having to fight for the position. What God has for you cannot be taken by anyone else, but you must wait for him to give it to you. Delays often happen because God is preparing you for the responsibility that comes with the blessing. A parent does not give the keys to a car to a child who is not mature enough to drive. It is not because they do not want the child to have the car, but because they know it would be dangerous. In the same way, God withholds certain blessings until we are ready to handle them. Think about the Israelites. God had promised them the land of Canaan, but instead of taking the short route, he led them through the wilderness for 40 years. Why? Because they were not spiritually mature enough to enter the land. Their hearts were still full of doubt and rebellion. God had to refine them before they could handle the promise. Many times we think we are ready for something, but God sees the deeper issues in our hearts that still need to be transformed. A delay can also be divine protection. Have you ever been frustrated by a traffic jam? Have you ever been frustrated by a traffic jam only to find out later that there was a major accident ahead? What seemed like an inconvenience was actually a blessing in disguise. God sees the dangers that we cannot see, and sometimes what we think is a delay is his way of keeping us safe from unseen harm. Waiting is difficult, but it is not wasted time. God uses delays to shape us, teach us, and prepare us. He does not operate on human schedules, but when the time is right, everything will come together in a way that is beyond what we imagine. If you are waiting on a promise, do not be discouraged. Just because it has not happened yet does not mean it will not happen. God is faithful, and at the appointed time, he will bring his word to pass. One of the hardest things for us to do is to let go of control. We want to plan every step, predict every outcome, and determine how things should happen. But faith demands trust, and trust means surrendering the need to know everything. Proverbs 3:05 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths." Many struggle with God's timing because they rely on their own understanding. They want explanations before they obey, but true faith is trusting even when the path is unclear. Abraham is a prime example. God told him to leave his homeland and go to a place that he would show him. Abraham did not receive a detailed map or a timeline, just a command to move in faith. If he had refused to obey until he had all the details, he would have missed the promise. A child sitting in the backseat of a car on a long journey often asks, "Are we there yet?" The child does not know the distance, the route, or the road conditions, but as long as the parent is driving, the child is safe. Our journey with God is the same. He sees the road ahead, the obstacles we cannot see, and the perfect moment to arrive. Trusting him means letting go of the need to control the speed and direction. Peter learned this lesson when he walked on water. As long as he focused on Jesus, he remained above the waves. But the moment he tried to understand the situation, looking at the wind and the water, fear took over, and he began to sink. When we insist on controlling the details, we end up overwhelmed by circumstances. But when we keep our eyes on God, we move forward in faith. Control often leads to stress. People exhaust themselves trying to manipulate outcomes, forcing situations to work according to their timelines. But when we surrender to God's timing, we find peace. Instead of striving, we trust that he is working behind the scenes. Instead of worrying, we rest in the assurance that his plan is greater than our limited perspective. Jesus exemplified ultimate trust in God's timing. Before beginning his ministry, he waited for 30 years. Though he had divine power, he did not rush ahead of God's plan. Even when facing the cross, he prayed, "Not my will, but yours be done." Surrendering control to God is not weakness. It is the greatest act of faith. Letting go of control does not mean doing nothing. It means being obedient in the present while trusting God with the future. Noah built the ark before a drop of rain fell. The Israelites marched around Jericho before the walls collapsed. Trusting God's timing means acting in faith without demanding immediate results. When we learn to let go, we allow God to lead us into blessings that are greater than anything we could orchestrate on our own. Waiting is never wasted. While people see delays as obstacles, God sees them as opportunities to develop character, refine faith, and strengthen endurance. James 1:3-4 states, "The testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Joseph endured years of hardship before becoming a ruler. Every trial he faced, being sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned, was shaping his character. Had he gone straight from being a shepherd boy to a leader, he would not have had the wisdom, humility, and resilience needed to govern Egypt. The process prepared him for the promise. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before leading Israel. God used that time to develop his leadership skills, patience, and dependence on divine guidance. If Moses had rushed ahead without preparation, he would have failed. Delays are often divine training grounds. God is not just preparing the blessing for you, he is preparing you for the blessing. Weightlifters understand this principle. To build strength, they must endure resistance. The heavier the weight, the stronger they become. In the same way, waiting builds spiritual strength. It teaches endurance, humility, and total reliance on God. People who avoid the process often lack the strength to sustain the blessings they desire. King David was anointed as a young boy, but instead of taking the throne immediately, he went back to tending sheep. This season was essential. He learned to fight lions and bears, skills that later prepared him to face Goliath. He learned leadership by caring for sheep, which helped him shepherd a nation. Waiting is not about inactivity. It is about preparation. Some rush ahead of God's timing and end up in situations they are not equipped to handle. Businesses fail because leaders were not prepared for the responsibility. Marriages struggle because people did not take time to develop emotional and spiritual maturity. Ministry efforts collapse because individuals stepped out before they were spiritually ready. God's delays are often his way of strengthening foundations before expansion. Athletes train for years before competing in major events. Surgeons spend years studying before performing surgery. Pilots undergo extensive training before flying a plane. Every significant role requires preparation. If this is true in the natural world, how much more in God's kingdom? If you are in a season of waiting, recognize it as a time of growth, not punishment. Endurance is built through testing. The Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 years because they lacked the character to enter the promised land. God was teaching them dependence, obedience, and faith. Many times people pray for elevation, but resist the process that builds the character needed to sustain it. A skyscraper requires a deep foundation. The higher the building, the deeper the foundation must be. If God is taking time to build your foundation, it is because he plans to take you higher. Jesus spent time in the wilderness before stepping into his ministry. During this period, he fasted, prayed, and overcame temptation. His time of preparation strengthened him for the mission ahead. Those who try to avoid the wilderness often miss out on the strength that comes from it. Waiting also exposes what is in our hearts. The Israelites complained, doubted, and rebelled while waiting. Their actions reveal their lack of trust in God. Waiting is a test of faith. It separates those who trust God from those who only trust results. True faith says, even if I do not see it now, I believe God is working. Strong faith is not built in moments of comfort, but in seasons of uncertainty. The people who make the greatest impact are often those who endured the longest waiting periods. Every delay carries a lesson. Every challenge strengthens resolve, and every test refines faith. The waiting season is not meant to break you, it is meant to build you. Those who embrace the process emerge stronger, wiser, and ready for the fulfillment of God's promises. Many times what appears to be a delay is actually divine protection. God sees the full picture, including dangers we are unaware of. What we perceive as a frustrating setback is often his way of shielding us from harm. Proverbs 16:9 says, "A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." God's direction is not just about leading us to the right place, but also about keeping us from the wrong place. A driver may plan a specific route, but if a GPS alerts them to roadblocks or accidents ahead, they will take a detour. The journey may take longer, but it prevents unnecessary trouble. God's timing operates in the same way. He may close a door, reroute a path, or slow things down, not to punish, but to protect. Many have rushed ahead of God's timing and faced unnecessary pain as a result. Some entered relationships before they were ready and suffered heartbreak. Others took job opportunities without seeking God's guidance, only to realize later it was the wrong fit. Businesses have collapsed because leaders moved forward without divine timing. Just as a doctor will not allow a patient to leave the hospital before they have fully healed, God does not release people into places they are not prepared to handle. Moses had a calling to deliver Israel, but his first attempt was premature. He killed an Egyptian and had to flee for 40 years. His heart was in the right place, but his timing was not. Had he waited on God's instruction, he would not have spent years in the wilderness before stepping into his destiny. Many go through unnecessary struggles because they act before receiving divine direction. Relationships provide another example of how God's timing protects. Many have married before they were spiritually or emotionally mature, only to find themselves in painful situations. God knows when two people are ready to build a life together. He does not withhold love, but ensures that when it happens, it is in alignment with His will. Rushing ahead can lead to years of heartache, while waiting on His timing leads to peace. Joseph's rise to power came at the perfect time. Had he been released from prison too soon, he would not have been in the right position to interpret Pharaoh's dream and save millions from famine. If he had become a ruler before his heart was fully prepared, he might have lacked the wisdom to handle the responsibility. God's timing not only positions you, but also ensures you have the right mindset to sustain what He gives you. A child may want to drive a car, but a wise parent waits until they're mature enough. Handing them the keys too soon would put them at risk. In the same way, God does not give us certain blessings until He knows we are ready. The waiting period is often frustrating, but it is an act of love from a God who wants to spare us from unnecessary pain. Many view delays as disappointments, but they are often divine interventions. If God closes a door, it is because He has a better one prepared. If He holds something back, it is because He is aligning circumstances for your protection. Trusting His timing means believing that He sees beyond what we see and is always working for our good. When God's appointed time arrives, no force in heaven or earth can stop His plan from unfolding. Isaiah 60:22 says, "When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen." This means that when God's perfect moment arrives, everything will fall into place effortlessly. No opposition, delay, or obstacle can prevent what He has ordained. A common mistake people make is trying to force open doors before God's timing. Sarah and Abraham's story illustrates this. Instead of waiting for Isaac, they tried to fulfill God's promise through human effort, leading to the birth of Ishmael. This decision created unnecessary conflict, proving that forcing things outside of God's timing leads to problems. But when God's appointed time came, Sarah conceived even when it seemed impossible. David's journey to kingship is another example. Though he was anointed as a young boy, he did not fight to take the throne. Instead, he waited for God's timing. Saul, the reigning king, tried to kill him out of jealousy. David had multiple chances to take matters into his own hands, but he refused. He knew that if God had promised the throne, no one could take it away from him. At the right time, Saul fell and David became king without forcing his way in. Esther's life also demonstrates divine timing. She was just an ordinary girl until the right time came for her to step into her purpose. When a decree threatened her people, her uncle told her, "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Esther 4:14. The opportunity to save a nation came at the exact moment she was in position. Had she been too early or too late, the outcome would have been different. Jesus Himself followed God's timing. Throughout His ministry, He often said, "My time has not yet come." He did not rush His mission, but waited for the appointed moment to fulfill His purpose. Even when faced with the cross, He trusted God's timing. His resurrection came exactly when it was meant to, proving that nothing can hinder what God has set in motion. Opportunities align perfectly when it is God's time. Many worry about missing their moment, but God does not operate on human mistakes. If He has ordained something for you, He will ensure you step into it. Even delays and detours cannot cancel His plan. Joseph's brothers tried to destroy his future by selling him into slavery, but God used every setback to position him for greatness. What was meant for harm, God turned for good. When God's time arrives, He orchestrates circumstances in ways no one could predict. Ruth's story is an example. She lost her husband and had no prospects for the future, but as she faithfully followed Naomi, she ended up working in Boaz's field. What seemed like an ordinary moment was actually divine alignment. At the right time, Boaz noticed her, and she stepped into a new destiny. Some worry that they have missed their opportunity, but God's timing is not dependent on human failure. If He has spoken a promise over your life, He will bring it to pass. Even if you feel delayed, God can redeem time. Joel 2:25 says, I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. He can accelerate what seems lost and make things happen in ways beyond imagination. God does not need human effort to accomplish His plan. When the right time comes, doors will open without struggle. You will not have to beg for opportunities because they will find you. The resources you need will appear. The people you need will come. Divine timing does not require manipulation. It's just obedience and faith. Trusting God's timing means resting in the assurance that He is in control. If you are waiting on a promise, do not fear. When the time is right, everything will unfold exactly as He intended, and no one will be able to stop it. 0.7. Trusting God's timing requires patience and faith. Patience is one of the hardest virtues to develop because it requires surrendering control. People want things to happen on their schedules, but God operates outside of human timelines. Faith and patience work together. Hebrews 6:12 says, through faith and patience, we inherit the promises. Faith believes that God will do what He has said. Patience trusts that He will do it at the right time. Many have faith but lack patience, which leads to frustration and discouragement. A farmer understands this principle. When he plants a seed, he does not dig it up every day to check if it has started growing. He trusts the process, knowing that growth happens beneath the surface before it becomes visible. The waiting period is not wasted time. It is necessary for development. If the farmer becomes impatient and pulls the plant up too soon, he will destroy what was meant to flourish. People often do the same thing with God's promises. They start with faith but grow impatient and try to force things only to realize that they were not yet ready for the blessing. Abraham's life illustrates the power of faith and the consequences of impatience. God promised him descendants as numerous as the stars, but for years nothing changed. As time passed, doubt crept in, and Abraham and Sarah decided to take matters into their own hands. Sarah gave her servant Hagar to Abraham, and Ishmael was born. Their impatience led to conflict and hardship, proving that human effort cannot replace divine timing. But when the appointed time arrived, Sarah conceived and gave birth to Isaac. The promise was fulfilled, not through striving, but through faith and waiting on God. David's journey to the throne also required great patience. He was anointed as king while still a shepherd boy, but instead of stepping into leadership immediately, he spent years on the run from Saul. There were moments when David could have taken the throne by force. He even had opportunities to kill Saul, but he chose to wait on God's timing. He understood that if God had called him, no one could stop it. His patience was rewarded when he became king at the right time without having to manipulate circumstances. Faith without patience leads to unnecessary struggles. Many people start off trusting God, but when they do not see immediate results, they begin to question His plan. Doubt replaces trust and frustration takes over. Some abandon the process too soon, unaware that their breakthrough was just ahead. Galatians 6:9 reminds us, let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. The key is to remain steadfast even when progress is invisible. The waiting season is often misunderstood. People see it as a delay, but God sees it as preparation. Just as a baby cannot be born before it is fully developed, a promise cannot be fulfilled before it is ready. The process builds character, strengthens faith, and deepens dependence on God. Those who trust His timing experience peace, while those who rush ahead face unnecessary hardship. Noah's obedience demonstrates the power of patience. God told him to build an ark when there was no sign of rain. For years he worked on the ark, enduring mockery and doubt from those around him, yet he remained faithful, trusting that God would fulfill His word at the right time. When the flood came, Noah and his family were saved because he chose faith over fear and patience over frustration. Many give up right before their breakthrough. The waiting season can feel like a test of endurance, but those who hold on will see the fulfillment of God's promises. His timing is never early, never late, always perfect. Trusting God's timing is not just about waiting for a promise. It is about learning to depend on Him fully. Many people trust God only when things happen quickly, but true trust is developed in seasons of uncertainty. When there are no visible signs of progress, when doors remain closed, and when prayers seem unanswered, that is when faith is tested the most. The Israelites had to learn this lesson in the wilderness. After leaving Egypt, they expected to reach the promised land quickly, but instead of a short journey, they spent 40 years wandering. God did not take them the shortest route because He wanted to teach them dependence. He provided manna daily, ensuring they relied on Him for provision. If He had given them a lifetime supply all at once, they would have stopped trusting Him. Many people want all the answers and resources up front, but God often provides step-by-step, teaching reliance instead of self-sufficiency. Paul experienced this dependence when he faced hardships in ministry. He prayed for God to remove a difficulty from his life, but God responded, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." 2 Corinthians 12:9. Instead of removing the struggle, God gave him strength to endure it. Sometimes God does not immediately change circumstances because He wants us to learn that His presence is greater than any solution. There are moments when life seems still, when nothing moves and no answers come. These seasons can feel frustrating, but they are opportunities to build unshakable trust in God. Joseph spent years in prison, forgotten by those he helped. But instead of giving in to despair, he relied on God. His character was refined in the waiting, and at the right time he was elevated to power. If Joseph had relied on his own wisdom, he would have tried to escape the process, but by trusting God, he walked into a destiny far greater than he could have planned. Relying on God also means letting go of self-reliance. Many people only trust Him when they have exhausted their own resources. They try to fix problems, manipulate situations, and force outcome. But true dependence is surrendering control completely. It is saying, "God, I trust you even when I do not understand." Jesus demonstrated complete reliance on the Father. Before starting His ministry, He spent 40 days fasting and seeking God. He did not rush into His mission without first depending on divine guidance. Even in His greatest moment of pain, as He faced the cross, He prayed, "Not my will, but yours be done." He trusted the Father's timing, knowing that the ultimate victory would come through surrender. When God delays, He is not punishing, He is preparing. Every waiting season has a purpose. Some doors remain closed because God is working behind the scenes. Some prayers seem unanswered because He is aligning things for a greater outcome. His plan is never random, it is intentional. Many people struggle to trust God fully because they fear losing control. But true peace comes when we stop striving and start surrendering. Isaiah 26:3 says, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you." Reliance on God removes anxiety and replaces it with assurance. The lessons learned in waiting seasons shape people for a lifetime. Those who try to rush ahead miss out on the deep work God wants to do in their hearts. Those who rely on Him completely experience blessings beyond what they could have imagined. Trusting His timing is not just about receiving a promise. It is about developing a relationship with Him that is built on faith, patience, and absolute dependence. My friend, I want to encourage you today. Trust God's timing. Do not grow weary, do not lose heart, and do not give up. The dream, the promise, the breakthrough, It's all coming at the right time. God sees you. He has not forgotten you. He is preparing you. And when the time is right, he will open the doors and you will step into everything he has destined for your life. Wait on the Lord, trust him, and watch his perfect timing unfold. Amen.